welcome to this week's vlog. This week I'm in a winter wonderland. You can see behind me, absolutely wonderful conditions. And today I thought I would give you my final thoughts on the OM Systems OM1 Mark II system that I've been using over the last 6 weeks. Again, a big thank you to Claire, Harvey, May for lending me the stuff. I've really enjoyed using it. It goes back next week, and I just wanted to share with you my thoughts. These are my thoughts. I appreciate that everybody's going to have different thoughts. My situation is very different, I would imagine, to your situation, because I'm looking for either a backup system or a backup camera to take to Lofoten in Norway, which I'm heading out to in a couple of weeks now. So actually today, with all this frost about, it's been fantastic. It gives me a chance to try out all my kit. But I've been using the Olympus system for a while. I've shot as many different genres as I could with it to give it a really good workout. And I want to talk to you about it, how it's performed, things I like about it, things I'm not so keen about, and ultimately what I've done in my quest to have a backup kit to go to Norway. Let's go in these woods then, see if we can find some pictures. I'll talk to you in a second. And I'm out with the OM1 Mark II, and I've put the 40 to 150 lens on. Now I've used this to photograph squirrels. You can see me using it up here. Ultimately I didn't show you those pictures because they had to be shot at 12,000 ISO, which actually it was okay with the Olympus. It wasn't as good as the Nikon. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So noise with the small sensor is going to be a problem, but the problem was even with that, the shutter speed was so low and the squirrels were so quick, I couldn't get them sharp, because even though this has got brilliant stabilization, and it's one of the things I really like about this, it doesn't matter if the subject's moving really quick. Stabilization isn't going to help you. But I'm using this today because I've not so far used this lens for Woodland, and it's a brilliant focal length for Woodland, because if you know the channel, you know that normally I use the 7.2 with my 24-200, and this is equivalent of 80 to 300 because on like 4/3 everything is doubled compared with full frame. So let's have a little go with this. I'm going to shoot the fighting trees in the mist, in the frost. They're going to glisten, they're going to glint, and I'll talk you through this shot. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about my thoughts. I've made some notes on the Olympus system. Okay, so we're ready to go here. So what we're looking at here is 5.6, which is the equivalent of f11, 50th a second, 200 ISO. Just waiting for a little bit of mist to form. It was there a second ago, but it's kind of dissipated a little bit. I could actually bring it a little bit back in post, but we'll see if we can get the conditions working. It's certainly cold enough. So classic composition for these two trees. As you know, I've shot these before. So we've got this big oak on the right with this lovely branch that's coming out, then the other one appearing to fight it off. I've got the stabilization off, 2 seconds. We're on manual, and I'm just going to overexpose the background a little bit, focusing on that main branch there. Again, peak focusing, and these lenses are fantastic, do a great job. And there we go, 2-second timer, and there is the finished picture. Right, this is the image done. Let's go and find somewhere to sit down and I can talk to you about my thoughts on the OM system. Let's talk about build quality first of all, and the way this is put together. I mean, this has got an L bracket on it at the moment. I've been hand holding it all through my Scotland trip, which hopefully you've seen. The body is tiny or it's small, but that suits me because I've got kind of small hands. The grip is so deep in there, it's absolutely amazing. So it's actually no problem to hold that while you're walking along. You never ever feel like you're going to drop it. You really feel like you've got a solid grip. The system itself is really light compared with other systems because it's so small, and the weatherproofing on all of this stuff is amazing. I mean, I've shot with it absolutely pouring down the rain in Scotland, and I didn't bother with a camera bag. I just had this with this lens hood, which I love, that goes up, and this is actually already attached. You can see that. I think that's amazing. I just had the camera like this. I made sure that I had it pointing down so the water didn't get on the lens, and it didn't miss a beat. There are videos on Olympus's site of it being absolutely soaked. So the weather sealing is amazing, and for a pro photographer, superb stuff. Really good. I don't like so much the actual covering of the body. It feels very slippery. Okay, having said that, I've just explained that the grip is really good. So once you've got a hold of it, it is really solid. The card cover is really solid. The Nikon Z7 II, sometimes we pull it out of the bag, the card cover undoes, which can be a pain when you're in a hurry. The way the buttons are all laid out, very good. The fact you can customize and interchange this, very good. I love all the buttons on the back, just to where your fingers lay. These rocker switches really feel solid. They're plastic, but you really don't feel like you're going to let grip of them. I like the fact there are 4 custom menus on here to use. That's really useful. So you can have one for macro, one for sports, one for landscapes, and one for general stuff, and have all those custom banks set up individually, which is so much quicker. The things I need to access quite quickly: drive modes on the top here, focusing modes on the top, again just for a rocker switch, really good. And of course the menu on the back, you press the OK button, all of that comes up, and there are all the things that you'd want to change. So to work your way around the camera is good once you've got it set up. Okay, but it does take a little while to set up. Things I would change: they have, luckily, or carefully or sensibly, move the menu button, or you can move it. The option is to have the delete button as a menu button now, which I think is a really good idea, because using it, I'm kind of hand holding it. I want to use everything with my right hand. I know there are only a certain amount of buttons to go around. It would be good if the on off button was on here as well, so be able to turn it on with your thumb while you're working, and off again. Maybe around the front grip here, which I'm kind of used to. That would be quite good. So that's build, and compared with the Nikon, I'd say it's about the same. Probably a little bit better because of the weather sealing. I think the Nikon Z system is probably weather sealed, but they don't claim it quite as much as the Olympus. But the Olympus system in the rain, have no hesitation whatsoever about using this. Right, let's talk about lenses then. Lenses are probably the most important thing in a system that you need. They need to be sharp, they need to be light, they need to be very rugged, and I have got no complaints at all. I think this Olympus glass is absolutely superb. I mean, the sharpness out of this has been amazing. I've used the 8-25 a lot. Very impressed with that beast there. It's a beautiful lens. Results have been really good. I've not pixel peeped too much. If you've seen my high res videos, you'll know that I've had a look to see about sharpness, but I'm not going to get into sort of details about lenses and resolution details. But all I would say is I would not hesitate to use any of these lenses on this body for any work that I'm going to do. Okay, let's talk about other things that I like, generally using it. The stabilisation on this is out of this world. 8.5 stops with the right lens. It was meaning that I was shooting waterfall pictures of 2-4 seconds, hand holding them and just dangling them over the edge, which means that when I went to Glen Etive, I managed to get this picture, which I couldn't have got to because I couldn't get down to it, but I managed to hold my hand down and angle it down. Absolutely pin sharp, fantastic. That's also, though, for me a bit of a con because I like working on a tripod. I feel like my photographs are better when I'm using the tripod because I think a bit more. Hand holding, I felt that I was kind of just snapping. It's nice to have the facility, but I would not want to get out of the habit of using a tripod personally. Now, you may be completely different to that, obviously. Macro, and you've heard me say this before, for macro photography, this is the best system out there, in my opinion. It's got live focus stacking. It's absolutely brilliant. The E-M1X that I've got with a 60mm macro lens, you will not beat that for macro anywhere else. It's absolutely amazing. My Z7 II for insects, unusable unless you want to shoot a straightforward shot. If you want to do focus stacking on insects and spiders and things like that are really small, you can't beat this system. So macro, hands down, this beats Nikon. Sports photography, yes, this is really good. The focusing on this is pretty good from what I've experienced. I haven't done an awful lot of it. I'm not a master of that genre. It's a lot better than my Z7 II. When I was photographing red squirrels with this, as opposed to the Z7 II, this was catching the eye a lot quicker and following the tracking was a lot better. Definitely great for wildlife. The fact there's a 2x crop sensor on this means that you can get a lot closer in for smaller glass, but there is a little bit of a caveat to that, because if you're following a squirrel, they're moving about a lot, or you're following some action, they're moving about a lot. You've only got a 20 megapixel sensor on here, which means you haven't got an awful lot of room to crop. But with a Z7 system, with a Z system on a full frame camera, I can actually allow the bird to move around, or the squirrel to move around in the frame, knowing that I can crop later and I'll still have the same size file as this. It's probably easier to use a full frame camera. So for wildlife and sports, really good. I wouldn't say it's better than the Z system. It's certainly better than the Z7 II, which is the camera that I've been using up until recently. So that would certainly work better. Next genre, astro. Now astro, you want as big a sensor as you can because it sucks in the light, you get less noise that way. And I think a full frame sensor with a wide aperture lens is going to beat a 20 megapixel crop sensor for astro. However, where this does come into its own is the live composite feature, which I absolutely adore on this camera system. If you've seen those nighttime pictures that I did at Battersea Power Station or down on the Thames, you'll know that it's just a wonderful feature. I've done some star trails with this, and it's just so easy to do. I know the software that does stuff off full frame. I know there's other camera systems that you can use, but this is so easy and so brilliant. I have no hesitation saying for star trails, this is best. For astro, the Nikon system wins out. What about portraits? Haven't used this on portraits, haven't taken a portrait for many years. Again, if you're framing properly and you're controlling your sitter, I would have no problems using this. I would have no problems using the Nikon system. The benefits of using this, it's cheaper, it's rugged, the lenses are smaller. If you're hand holding it all day doing a long session, then this might be a better system to use. I'd probably say, in the end, that's a tie. Still life. There's a high res mode in this, which you've seen me use. I don't think you can use it very well for seascapes, but for still life and for architecture, absolutely brilliant. There's no reason at all why I wouldn't use this. The glass is good enough, it's sharp enough. So still life, architecture, no hesitation in saying this is just as good as the Nikon system if you use the high res mode. And the high res mode is really easy to turn on. You just press the video record button And there it is. Street photography. Haven't done any street photography at all. I don't see necessarily this has got an advantage over the Nikon, apart from the fact that it's lighter to carry around, so maybe a slight edge to the Olympus system. It's got the flippy screen, which is really nice. The screen is actually beautiful. You can do whatever you want with it, which is really useful for street because you'll be looking down photographing, so people don't know you're doing it necessarily if that's the way you work. I'm not an expert on it, but I would imagine that both systems are okay. This is probably the one I would pick up because it's lighter. So far a win for the Olympus. Other genres, what about travel photography? Well, if I was going traveling, probably take one of these. The weight of my E-M1X is actually the same as the body of the Z8. So there's not a lot in it, but this is lighter. And as a whole, this system is a lot lighter. So if you're traveling, it's more compact, it's lighter, it'll fit into your backpack and your luggage better. So traveling, climbing mountains, hiking, this is probably what I would choose. So now we come to, for me, the three most important genres. These are the ones that I do the most of almost 90% of the time. I shoot mainly landscapes, woodland and seascapes, and if we look at those in reverse order, I think you'll find, in my opinion, the Nikon wins. First of all then, seascapes. Seascapes, I'm often on the beach at sunrise when it's dark. We have a very contrasting sky because when the light comes up, the dynamic range is quite amazing, quite extensive, and I need a camera that can cope really well with all of those very subtle colours in the sunrise sky. I also blur the water. You know, I could increase the dynamic range on this, and I could use high res mode, which I've done several tests on, trying to get it right. But in my opinion, from what I've seen, the dynamic range is better, but unfortunately we get motion blur in some of the static objects that can't cope very well, unsurprisingly, with lots of moving water. So I could go around it, I could work around it by upscaling, but I'm not particularly interested in that. I'd like to just shoot, process and move on. What about woodland? Well, woodland is another genre I do quite a lot of, probably more than seascapes. And for woodland, I like to work on a tripod. I think it's great for fine-tuning compositions. So the IBIS on this, it kind of becomes irrelevant. I crop 65-24 quite often, and 65-24 crop on a 20 megapixel sensor for me just wouldn't be good enough quality. The 45 megapixels of the Z7 II is definitely what I'd be using, so I'd pick that camera up over this every single time for woodland. And finally, landscapes. Now, I've taken this to Scotland, you may have seen on the channel, for 4 days shooting in all weathers. I've shot in snow, I've shot in rain, and I've shot in sun. It's performed very well. I've enjoyed hand holding it. However, looking back at the files when I got them into Lightroom, I didn't feel, and there's no data on this that I'm going to give you, I didn't feel there was anywhere near enough flexibility in the files in Lightroom as I would expect in the Nikon Z system. So when I pulled down the highlights on this, I pulled them down to 100%, and sometimes I'm still getting overexposed skies, which I was very surprised about. The Nikon, I wouldn't expect that at all. I would say if you move the sliders even slightly, it changes quite a lot. On the Nikon, I've got a lot more flexibility with that. So I feel that for landscapes, even with the ND Grad facility on this, which I have spoken about in the previous video, I still feel like I trust the Nikon over the Olympus if I'm under pressure and working in that kind of environment. So for landscapes, the Nikon system wins. So in the end, what have I decided to do? Well, I've decided that I'm not going to do the complete switch because I've just said about my main genres being landscape, seascape and woodland. There's no way I'm going to be switching from Nikon for that, because that does a better job. So what have I done? Well, I bought, in the end, I bought this. Say hello to my Z8. This is now going to become my main camera, and what I'm going to do is take away my Z7 II as a backup, so I've got 2 spare bodies. I'm also going to Lofoten with a couple of mates, so Mersey Millsy, who uses Canon, and Gary Sugden, who's a fellow Nikon Z user, and we've agreed that if one of us breaks something, the other one is hopefully going to lens it out. So I'm going to carry a couple of spares, Gary's going to carry a spare or 2, and we'll be able to swap over and cover it whatever happens. So if I break a body, I've got a spare body. If I break a lens, hopefully Gary's got something that I can use. We can certainly get some images. So that's the plan, and going forward, really looking forward to using this. This has the benefits for me that it's great for action, it's great for sports, it's great for wildlife, and I'm looking forward to using that because it's actually a baby Z9. So this is going to do all those other genres that I wanted to get involved with. But that doesn't mean I'm going to abandon Olympus. I'm going to keep my E-M1X. I may actually part exchange it for an OM1 because I really love this camera. Brilliant for composites. Absolutely love that. Absolutely irreplaceable for macro. So definitely going to use it for that. And if I ever climb out mountains, it would definitely work very, very well as a lightweight kit and a travel kit as well. So this is a really good system. Don't get me wrong. It's a really good system. If you are new to photography, it will serve you well. If you're, find things the weight of things difficult, this is brilliant. I'm going to put on the pictures in a minute of this camera, this lens, which is the 40 to 150, shooting some macro. I mean, it's also almost a macro lens. Absolutely superb. I'll put those on at the end of this, so stay tuned for that. But going forward, that is going to be, for me, a better system. Next week then, I'm shooting some Astro with the Z8 in Tenerife. So stay subscribed for that. If you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button so you can see when that comes up. If you click the bell, you'll be notified. But it's going to be next Sunday at 6 o'clock. So until then, thanks ever so much for watching. Sorry this is a bit longer, but I had lots to say. Till next week, take care. Goodbye.